You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast, Episode 4.
And I think what happens is some people are afraid to give. They're afraid to be philanthropic in case, what if the flow stops? But it's counterintuitive. The more you give away, the more you'll receive.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
Mari Smith is one of the world's top social media thought leaders. She is author of The New Relationship Marketing and co-author of Facebook Marketing An Hour a Day. Mari travels the U.S. and internationally to provide engaging social media keynotes and in-depth training to entrepreneurs and corporations. Mari has been recognized by Fast Company, Forbes, and Dun & Bradstreet Credibility. There is so much to know about Mari, so I will let you Google her, and we'll get right to the good stuff of talking with her. Hello, Miss Mari Smith, my friend. Welcome to the show today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. Thank you, Angie. And I love that. I often do say to people, and they ask, well, where's the best way to find you? I'm like, just Google me.
You might be the most Googleable person in the world, or one of them.
You're very kind. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this.
So just for you listeners out there, there's so much to talk to Mari about with regard to digital marketing and social media, but we're not here to talk about that so much today. You can find her online, listen to one of her free webinars, buy a product from her, see her speak throughout the country, but today we're going to talk about something a little closer to our heart. I understand, Mari, this is a little different conversation for you.
It's definitely different. And I have to say, I can talk about Facebook marketing, social media success until the cows come home and in my sleep. But I really do have a passion for talking about things that are a little bit closer to my heart, and spiritual matters and personal and passions and what we're going to talk about today with the life purpose. It's just, I just jumped at the chance. I love that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. When you find out your purpose, you have no choice but to follow it.
Indeed, yeah.
Many people see Mari on stage. She's a very bubbly presence. I think you describe yourself as a bubbly Scottish Canadian.
That's right, yeah.
And they see the lighter side of you, but knowing you personally, I know that there's a very deep side to Mari Smith.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I feel very blessed to have had quite an interesting childhood. I think as a child I really didn't appreciate it, but I was raised in a small Quaker community. My parents were very active, practicing Quakers. They were both teachers in a Quaker high school, I guess it was. And we kind of lived way out in the boonies and a little bit of a farm. We had goats and hens. And it just was a wonderful start when I look back on my childhood. A good foundation. My dad taught me good values. And he was a single parent after I was age 12 and we moved over to Scotland. So it's a good influence. Both my parents really good influence in my life.
And if we were to ask them, I wonder if they would be surprised at what they're seeing you do today with your life. But we'll leave that for pondering. So I'd love to know from you, Mari, do you believe in life purpose? Do you know what yours is?
I absolutely do believe in life purpose. And I think probably for the first several decades of my life, well, I don't want to make myself that old. I'm in my late 40s. I started thinking about it when I was 2, For the longest time, I would say, Angie, that I always felt that life purpose was defined as a label or a career or some kind of a title. It was more about like what you were doing. And probably over the last maybe just 3 years or so, I've come to shift my relationship to my life purpose. And to me, it's really more about a state of beingness. It's beyond the day-to-day life. It's beyond what I'm doing necessarily, except that, for example, like if I were to change my career, totally change my career, I would still have my life purpose. Like me, my life purpose is real simple, to love, to shine my light as brightly as I possibly can and wherever I am, and to remember that I am a conduit. I'm a conduit through which I can bring through that light and that love. I mean, really, we all are. But if I keep, for me, that just works for me, because I keep my life purpose really simple and know that 24/7 in whatever environment, whatever circumstances, whatever job, whatever audience I'm in front of, whoever I'm talking to, that I'm always on purpose.
Very beautiful. And I've seen you over the years as you've grown and become more comfortable in your public persona. You've started to share more things on social media about raising consciousness and spirituality, and changed your shift a little bit in the last few years.
Yeah, that's right. Indeed. In 2012, I launched a coaching club called Business and Beyond. And I felt that because obviously I'm known in the business world for teaching marketing, that I didn't want to go and create just a standalone course or club that was only personal or spiritual growth. And so I married the two. And the Business and Beyond, it was a really big success. You know, there's principles in there, obviously, to help people to grow their business. But what was magical, I'm speaking about it in past tense because it's actually on a hiatus right now. I'm not leading the course right now in 2014. But who knows, I'll probably resurrect it in 2015. And I've talked for a while about doing a podcast on the same subject, because to me, it landed so well. It was received so well, Business and Beyond. We had about 45 people from around the world go through that program for 12 months. And as they did their inner work, as they cleared away their blocks and their limiting beliefs and healed parts of their childhood wounds, they found that their businesses were suddenly starting to flourish better. They were getting a higher quality of clients. They were making more money. They were feeling more peace with themselves and with their family members and whatnot. And so I know that's actually part of my purpose, is to use the business world, if you will, and these social channels to help elevate consciousness, to help people know that there's a better way, and to know that really they are absolutely the creators of their reality. And if this is the bottom line, if you don't like the life that you're living or the business that you're running, that fortunately you're in the driver's seat. You have the ability to make some changes, and I love to empower people and wake people up to that truth.
You mentioned that these folks were making more money and being more successful in their businesses. Do you think that was because they were able to act more on their authentic voice and they could see their own truth?
Hugely. And 90% of these 45 people were women, and what I found is really an interesting trend was that the lack of belief in oneself is to say, well, gosh, okay, I have this skill, I have this talent, but can I really put it out there? Can I really shout it from the mountaintops? Can I really charge this amount of money for it? That holding oneself back and that limiting belief, and it probably comes from childhood or school years of just, and maybe it's a gender thing that, we're not supposed to just, put ourselves out there too much. And or it can also be just a matter of skill and practice. One of my favorite books is simply called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth by Michael Gerber. It was really popular in the 1980s. And the whole premise there is that often you'll get people who are practitioners that are extremely good at what they do, whether, a massage therapist or personal coach or a fitness trainer, you name it. Then they go to try to set up a business or making pies, you name it. That's one of the examples from the book, cherry pies. But they may not have a bunch of skills as a business person and really knowing what it takes to market themselves and measure the right metrics and attract the right kinds of clients, and having that practical skill set as well as the more intangible aspects of the healing the relationship to oneself and your childhood, and just feeling good about yourself and that you matter and belong and are unique in this world. And actually one more thing I want to say on that, it just came to me right now, is that relevant to this piece here is how often we will compare ourselves. And I think that's really as a habit we've got to stop, especially as women business owners. Is oftentimes if you happen to be looking at your Facebook newsfeed, you will compare your I hesitate to say worst day, but say you're just kind of having a crappy day and you go on Facebook and now you're seeing some friends posting about all kinds of wins and great things happening in their life. Well, now you're comparing your bad day to their best day, and you're thinking, oh, gee, it's like, woe is me. We just have to knock that off and really not compete or compare and just strive to be better versions of ourselves. That's it. You can't be better than anyone else, but you could be a better version of yourself. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up a good point. When oftentimes when people are having bad days, we're not out there on Facebook posting about those things. We use those social media outlets to talk about our happy times and our wins. And and that's not a bad thing, because I don't really want to read a bunch of negativity in my Facebook news. No, I don't want to read that either. But to your point about maybe not look at Facebook when you're having one of those down moments.
Turn to a real friend. Exactly. Pick up the phone or go and meet a real friend or journal or meditate or do some kind of a practice that will help you get to the bottom of what some of your challenges are at that moment. Yeah.
Right. Since we're talking about Facebook, what is your opinion on Facebook as it relates to consciousness and being a network of, do you believe that Facebook is helping raise our level of consciousness?
Oh, I'm so glad you're asking this, because it's interesting, because there's many different audiences I speak to, and sometimes I think I can go way out in a limb and say something pretty woo-woo, and other times I'll edit myself if I'm speaking to more like a tech crowd or something. But yeah, here we are in Southern California. It's kind of the mecca of woo-woo. So, and you have this beautiful podcast talking about life purpose. I know even just the fact that we're having this conversation is perfect for me to say this, and I feel that social media in general, Facebook in particular, is a direct manifestation of our collective desire to want to have more connection, to want to have to lean into belonging and knowing that we matter and that we have this common platform through which we can pretty much reach anybody in the world that we want to. And so what's happening as a result is that we are all being called to higher standards, if you will. Obviously, we've used the word transparency for a long time, but that transparency comes with the invitation, if you will, to be a better version of yourself, to look out for your neighbors, and to choose to focus on, putting out messages that do help to elevate the consciousness. And interestingly enough, this is good timing that I actually just recently had a in-depth conversation with Facebook's SMB team, the small and medium-sized businesses. And we're looking at teaming up next year, and I'm super excited about that. I have actually been wanting to do that for a very long time. And the conversation was so beautiful. One of the reasons I'm bringing it up now is that what these two gals I was talking to, both of them been with Facebook a long time, they were so heartened to know that my approach, if you will, to putting myself out there is very non-competitive. I will happily shine the light on someone who does exactly what I do, because first of all, I know they can't do it exactly like I do it, but also because I know that there's plenty to go around. There's no lack. There's so much business and commerce, and there's so many people need help, and no one person can service everybody in need, So to your question, yeah, absolutely. I think that Facebook has a massive impact on helping to elevate the consciousness of the planet.
And more to be seen. Mm-hmm. As you and I both have discussed before with the conference Wisdom 2.0 and what's going on in the Silicon Valley tech companies, where Google is bringing in people like Eckhart Tolle to talk to their staff and other spiritual leaders.
Right.
So we're seeing a convergence, and it's a few years old now. So we see business and spirituality conjoining. We see science and spirituality. So one big triangle that is moving in a collective direction. Some very interesting things coming in our lifetime, I think.
I totally agree. It's very exciting. I was just recently at an event, a 4-day event in Boulder, Colorado. It was called Success 3.0 Summit. And the whole premise was discussing, very open discussion, like 300 people there, 350, discussing how to redefine what it means to be successful.
I love that.
Yeah, it was put on by the Center for Integral Wisdom. They're similar, kind of like we were talking about the Wisdom 2.0. It's just that marriage, that convergence. I love that word. of these two worlds that are normally pretty disparate. It's like tech, it's like these propeller heads, they're in their head. Wait a minute, spirituality? Of course, because we're all spiritual beings.
Mm-hmm. It's such interesting things. You and I have both know Congressman Ryan, who's written a book about mindfulness and meditation in the classroom and the mindful nation. So things that I would have never guessed would happen are bubbling to the surface. So, but we could spend our whole time talking about that, but I would really like to talk about you.
Okay.
And your purpose. Yes. So do you think that there have been hints along the way in your life? And what were those hints that came up to lead you in the direction of knowing that your purpose is to be the light?
Let's see. I think probably for the longest time, like if I look back at my career, I left school super young. I was actually only 15 and a half. You can leave school at 16 in Scotland, and I was a year ahead of myself. I skipped a grade in elementary school, so I was in the same class as my older sister. She's 16 months my senior. And when we moved over to Scotland, I went right into high school. Left, did not go to college, went right into the workforce, could not wait to get out and earn my own money. Bought my first apartment at 18, moved out my dad's house.
No surprises in any of that,
I just always been, an early adapter and just, taking control of my own destiny, really. But for the first, 15, up into my early 30s, I was always an employee, but a lot of wide and varied careers. But when I look back and then fast forward when I came to the States in San Diego in 99, and became an entrepreneur, throughout my career, whether an employee or an entrepreneur, there's always been these two threads, and pretty much every job I've ever done, whereas there's a people element, my passion for people. I'm either training people or, working with other people or doing some kind of mentoring or sales training, you name it. And there's always been technology. So when social media came into my life in 2007 and Facebook kind of landed in my lap, it just was like a magical convergence, that beautiful word, if you will, of these two passions and loves of mine, people, relationships, right, and technology. I'm like, social media, that's what it is. It's relating through technology. How awesome is that? I like to joke about being an overnight success, 10 years in the making. And yet, during those 10 years, that people don't always see that really that hard work and the focus, I was still living my purpose. I was still having fun and shining the light and just loving wherever I was at and what I was doing. And I went through a divorce in 2009, and that was challenging. But it was also extremely liberating because as a result, I began to pursue a more spiritual path. I began to study with a spiritual teacher, and within literally about 1 month of deciding and pretty quickly acting on completing my marriage, the floodgates opened. It was like the universe said, hallelujah, she's finally going to listen and trust herself. And I had more customers than I knew what to do with. I had money flowing to me, made more money that year than I ever made in my life. It was just amazing. And it really is, I never looked back. It's been just a great, great journey. One more thing I want to add on the life purpose is I remember in 2008, I was doing one of my first presentations just about Facebook. I'd done a lot of presentations before, but this was my first one in front of 500 people in LA and talking about Facebook marketing. And one of my fellow speakers is a lady who but she reads your palm. She'll read the kind of the lines on your handprints and tell you your life purpose. So I was a little skeptical, but we're sitting at the back of the room, and she was wondering how to get on Twitter. And I just real quick and easy. I was like, okay, just do this, and let's load up a picture now, and here's how you tweet, and here, give me your phone. And I said, okay, here you do. Literally about 20 minutes later, and she was blown away, and she says, give me your hand. I want to check where you're at. And she said, your purpose, your life purpose, is to take the complex, simplify it, and teach it to others so that they really get it. Well, I got to tell you, Angie, I can still feel it now in my heart. I burst into tears. I felt, oh God, I start welling up. I felt so gotten. And I knew that what she was saying was just so true. I'm like, that's it. I've been doing that all my life. I take the complex and simplify it. I always have this, I have this ability to make things more understandable and simplify it to the point where people are just like, okay, yeah, of course I get it. When you invited me to come on your show, I just love the whole conversation about life purpose because I feel that, yes, I have this to be the love, to be the light, and I also have this skill set or this innate ability to do what I do in whatever career I'm in, which is to simplify and teach others.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned this earlier. I want to just repeat that again. I think because people see you online, they see you speaking, they see you being very light and, to use your words, bubbly, maybe some people don't know the level of your deep, deep intelligence. Obviously, you're very smart, but I know you're very, very deliberate in how you run your business and your messaging and how you connect with others. And it's all very authentic, but what you're talking about now, the purpose that you just stated, fits very closely with all of that.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. And so I love to do live events, and I actually had many people come up to me and say, that's just that you can definitely get a sense for someone, even on live video. And I do my kind of, bubbliness and goofiness even will come across on some of my hangouts and my live streams. But yeah, there's something magical, obviously, about meeting people in person and actually feeling their vibration, feeling their energy. And I have had many people still come up to me in tears even. It's something that I've said from the front of the room that will really have touched them deeply. Like something I remember one time I was speaking at a major event and another one in LA. This is a few years ago now. Maybe about 900 to 1,000 people there. And I was on a panel. All the speakers were being interviewed, and I was the only woman. I think there was 5 men, and the interviewee was a man, and I was the only woman. And it was very focused on money. And the interviewee said to everybody, what was your biggest financial disaster? Well, I thought, I don't want to share that. And all these guys, I remember the time I lost $10 million. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, can the audience relate to that? Well, probably not really. And I shared something that was just very different. I said something like, my biggest financial disaster was just not trusting myself and not believing in myself and probably staying in a marriage a little too long, much longer than I probably should have, and just holding myself back of, probably some missed opportunities. And then I started seeing things like God, universe, whatever you want to call it, didn't put a dream in your heart that you can't manifest. If you have this longing, this dream, this vision, especially if it's recurring, and it's there for a reason. Well, I tell you, Angie, after that panel, and that was in the evening before I spoke the next morning, I had a huge line of people, men, tears running down their face, and it was beautiful. It was awesome, and I knew, again, my life purpose up there in that moment, they didn't even necessarily even want to learn about social media and marketing and Facebook. It was being able to touch their lives and open up their hearts and minds to other possibilities of how to look at life and look at themselves.
Well, it's like you gave them permission to feel the truth.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
What a gift to those folks.
Thank you.
So let's talk about spirituality. You mentioned that after your divorce, you started working with a spiritual teacher, and I know that was a very important part of growing for you. What are your spiritual beliefs?
Well, they're probably still very much like my foundational upbringing of the Quaker tradition. I don't really call myself a Quaker, and unfortunately, I think a lot of people will confuse them with the Amish and the Shakers and whatnot and think that they're very, have a lot of strict rules. But the Quakers are really quite the opposite. They're very peace-loving, extremely. That's probably one of their number one values is peace, equality, acceptance, just embracing and loving everyone. And Dad used to always say that there's more gay people and people of color and people, atheists even, are in the Quaker, they come to a Quaker meeting. Is whoever you are, whatever you choose to believe, wherever you come from, whatever walk of life, you're welcome in the Quaker meeting house. And they don't even necessarily meet in a sacred building, a church, a man-made sacred building. Obviously, there's beautiful churches around the world. I don't mean to demean that. But Quakers will just get together in somebody's living room and, nobody presides over. It's just we all meditate. You meditate for the first half hour, and then the second half hour, whoever feels moved by spirit will speak. And so I have always loved that approach to life and our fellow humans and our fellow creatures on this planet, and children and adults alike, juniors and seniors, is that we are all equals. No spirit is better than another. It's not about status and money and power and whatever, all that Western way of measuring ourselves. It's really just treating people as equals and seeing them as a spiritual being. And I do believe in a higher power. I believe in the universe, God. I tend to be a little bit careful of using words that might alienate some people, but I absolutely know that the same life force that knows to make the pink rose pink and put the beautiful leopard kind of spots on my Bengal cat and knows to make Mari and Angie, it's all the same. It's all the same life force. God, universe, great spirit, is something that's so magical that it's sometimes hard to even find words for it.
Mm-hmm. If I had one wish in the world, I think it would be to be able to take all that emotion that's around the word God and around the religion and the word church out of play altogether. Because I feel like that gets in the way of people experiencing whatever their own path is. I mean, obviously that's part of their path, but if I could take all that out, I think I would do that.
That's a really good point, yeah. Big difference between organized religion and faith and whatnot and just being spiritual, knowing that you're a spiritual being. There's a spirit that lives in you and through you.
Mm-hmm. And do you think if someone is not living a spiritual life that they can find their purpose?
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see. If they're not living a spiritual life, well, interestingly enough, we were all living spiritual lives whether we know it or not. Like we talk about things like the law of attraction or the law of reciprocity or the law of karma. All of those are in play whether people are, proactively engaging with them or not. I think the people that probably don't or have difficulty finding their life purpose is if they feel kind of at the mercy of their lives. They feel like it's what their parents did to them, or it's the government, or it's their boss, or woe is me, and they're kind of putting the focus outside of themselves as to where they're at in life and thinking they have no choice. I know that's sad to me, and ultimately, as soon as somebody realizes, gosh, wait a second, I do have a choice, even if, who was it, Viktor Frankl that wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning, right? And he talked about even the last of all choices is our attitude. So no matter where you are, no matter even the most awful circumstances, you can still choose your attitude. And out of that could actually come some more beautiful opportunities, and you can attract yourself or make choices and take action that will put you on a whole different plane.
And if you don't know who Viktor Frankl is, or you haven't read his work, why is he able to say those things, Mari?
Well, because he spent a long time in prison.
He spent a lot of time in prison.
Yeah.
So if you're spending your life in prison, and you can still say those kinds of things, that those of us that are just living our day-to-day lives have to get out of our own ways. Or he's a good example for that.
Yeah, it reminds me of that little saying. I don't think this comes from him, but it's two men looked out through prison bars. One saw mud and one saw stars.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. There's the bubbly Mari that we know, which brings up a good point. Like, spirituality is a very fun, light thing. It doesn't have to be a serious conversation. I have a great time with my spiritual practice. How about you?
Yeah, I truly do. Absolutely. It's just so much fun. When I meet people who are just so self-expressed and vivacious, you can see the light behind their eyes. And, here's the thing, too. Even if I'm going out to my favorite grocery store here, Jimbo's. Yay, Jimbo's are like basically this, health food store nearby. And just interacting with people at the checkout, making sure I have my force of habit. I got my phone in my hand. I'm checking my tweets or whatever. No. Put the phone in my purse. Look up, make eye contact, say thank you, use a person's name, be present, and even if it's for a fleeting moment, it's a beautiful thing, because then we have that connection, and you see that person lights up, that person is seen.
Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what it's like to work in a checkout line if every single person was looking at their phone all day long?
It would be pretty lonely.
Very, very lonely. Very alienating,
yeah.
I would think. Mm-hmm. So speaking of practice, do you have a daily practice?
I have many. It's interesting. I would say, okay, so this is a fairly new one I want to share with you, because my practice in the past, I have tried to not sleep close to my phone, but I have all these excuses that, I use it for my alarm, and I use it to control my Sonos player and play my music, and so it's just too tempting. I think I'll just check email. I'll just check Facebook. And so I've made this new pact with myself. It's been great. I've been doing this for several weeks now, as I've picked up one of my recent trips at an airport bookstore. It's daily positive quotes. Like there's a quote and then there's a little kind of like thought for the day, and it just kind of sets the tone for the day. So I make this rule with myself. I'm not allowed to even touch my phone until I've read that beautiful thought and inspiration for the day. I usually interact with my cat. She puts me into a real present mode, and I journal on a fairly regular basis. I can't say daily. I'd love to say that I meditate every single day, but I'm a practicing meditator. I do my best to meditate as often as I can. But one really super simple habit that I have, but I always say it is a practice, a little bit like how the Japanese do this, Japanese, Chinese tea ceremonies, you know how it's just everything's so mindful, so deliberate, everything. As I make my bed, and I never just like quickly throw it together and make it look pretty on top, but it's all a mess underneath. I just am very deliberate and slow and methodical about making my bed really beautifully. I do the exact same in the hotel room. Even when I'm checking out, I'll make my bed. It's just a habit I've had for so many years, and I find it just kind of helps to ground me, you know?
I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever say that they make their bed in a hotel room. So that certainly qualifies as a practice.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. Sometimes I hang up the do not disturb sign, as I don't need room service every day, or housekeeping. So they can come in every few days if I'm staying there for a while. But I find that it does something to my mind. It's just a really great practice. Yeah.
How about the physical body? Do you think that the physical body plays a role in living your purpose and living a spiritual life?
It does. I think that we have to have a healthier relationship with our physical body. It isn't about looking like you have a six-pack and being, a model-like body or whatever, but it's certainly about having a very healthy, full-on self-acceptance about your physical body and being able to just love the skin you're in. And yeah, I eat pretty healthy, I work out, I go through phases. Sometimes I'm just a fiend and I'm working out, 5-6 days a week, and then I slack off for a month or something, or 2 weeks, and then I get back on track. And about 2 years ago, I lost not a lot of weight, but 18 pounds, but released it back to the universe, I like to say. If I say lost, then that sounds like I might want to go find it again, but I donated it back to the universe. And so I'm just really mindful. I had to change out all my whole wardrobe when I lost the weight. So, obviously I like to present myself well, and a big part of it is having those exercise practices and just loving my body. And also, I notice I'm seated a lot, and I find that if I can be mindful about when my body's saying, hey, it's time to get up and move, time to stretch, time to do something different and take a break from sitting, which is really damaging to the body over long periods of time.
Mm-hmm. I remember a conversation we had, and I believe you were talking about running hill sprints.
I still do those, yes.
So you make your bed and then go outside and run hill sprints. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling like my practice needs a little upgrade after those two things. I believe I saw you post one time you have an inversion table. is that right?
It's called a yoga swing, Omni Gym, and it's a swing that I have suspended from my pergola outside, and it allows you to do inversion as well as all kinds of fancy things. You can kind of be pretend that you're in Cirque du Soleil and do all kinds of suspended yoga moves. But yeah, it's really good for the spine.
I'm going to have to come spy on you sometime.
Yeah, come on over.
With your permission, of course. How about synchronicity? Do you think synchronicity plays a role?
I do, and I think synchronicity is around us all the time if we are fully present. I love Eckhart Tolle. You mentioned his name earlier, and he's one of my favorite authors and speakers. I have so many of his audios, and he talks about, we were talking about like the mindfulness. So even when you're doing the dishes or whatever, like making the bed, we're talking about this, typing an email, just to be so mindful and keeping your mind clear such that you will notice so much more when synchronicities are all over. Like you'll just be thinking of someone, boom, they call you. You think, I want to go take a different route to work today, and lo and behold, you meet someone that you've always wanted to meet, something like that. So synchronicity, to me, a big part of that is trusting our intuition and being present, having a clear mind.
Agree. So since you brought up intuition, do you think that you're intuitive?
Highly. And again, I think we all are. I think that we all have that sixth sense. What happens though, we get so clouded with our thoughts, and we think we are our minds and the ego, and it's just go nuts. So it's like that, what they call it, the monkey mind, that ape that's just swinging around in there, almost to detach yourself and become the observer of the mind, such that that's what meditation does, is quieting the mind. And the more you can quiet your mind, or even if, some people journal a lot and get a lot of that stuff out of their minds and onto paper, and it's so much easier to hear the intuition. The big thing for me, Angie, over the years is I will hear my intuition, and in the past I've either disregarded it or haven't really trusted it or haven't acted on it. But anytime I have, and I've gotten a lot better about this over the years, that when I do act on my intuition, it's just been a beautiful thing. It always serves me so well. And that goes both ways. That might be like choosing not to do business with someone, or not to say yes to an opportunity when you kind of like you're tempted, but you check in with yourself. A wonderful saying that, a mantra really, I learned from my spiritual teacher, Esperanza, is, what is my deepest intent? What's my deepest intent? I love that, because you can go and look, wow, well, I'm going to say yes to this because it's going to make me money, but I really don't want to do it. Wait a minute. You can't say yes only for the money. It's just going to come back and bite you. You have to have your heart in it, your heart and soul in it. So, things like that. I also encourage people to use that mantra for their social media. Before you hit the post or update or publish, ask, what is my deepest intent? Was it to be snarky and get back at someone, or to prove that I'm right? And like, no way, don't hit the delete button.
Right, for sure. Yeah. A question about money. I think you've alluded to this already, but do you make more or less money now that you're aligned with your purpose?
Vast amounts more.
Have your values changed?
My values have changed, absolutely. I think I wouldn't say that they've changed so much as I'm having this image in my mind of Michelangelo with the statue of David, and where you're chipping away everything that's not. And I almost like come full circle back to my values of real just simplicity, valuing the greatest pleasures in life are things that really money can't buy, just like communing with flower or interacting with my cat or walking on the beach. I've been very, very blessed financially over the last, probably about 8 or 9 years. I've been fortunate to be debt-free for about 16 years. I just recently connected with someone who teaches ethical investing. And so now I just signed up for a course to learn how to be an even better steward of money. And because it's like, again, it's all energy, right? And it's basically the better that I can take care of and redirect the flow, it's giving back, it's being able to support some of my family members and friends and just causes that I believe in, then what happens is that the more flow comes to you. And I think what happens is some people are afraid to give. They're afraid to be philanthropic in case, what if the flow stops? But it's counterintuitive. The more you give away, the more you'll receive.
Lots of things are counterintuitive. My friend Wendy Craig Purcell last weekend was just talking about slowing down to catch up. Mm-hmm. We feel like we need to speed up to catch up, but it doesn't often work that way.
Exactly.
So you mentioned your friends and family. Have you encountered resistance from friends or family regarding stepping up to this bigger version of yourself?
Yeah, my mother might listen to this podcast. So I can't say too much. Hi, Mom, if you're listening. Love you. I love you. She came to some of my spiritual programs and or the ones I used to go to with Esperanza earlier this year, and it was beautiful. We had a profound, great, terrific, deep healing and connecting, and it was lovely. I wouldn't change anything for the world. And then some things happened moving along. We've had a little bit of a disagreement, and it's like really caused me to look at, wow, holy moly. It's interesting where if I'm looking at someone, in this case, using my mom as an example, with a certain kind of perspective of who I think she should be or who I want her to kind of grow into, or the potentiality. I suppose another good example would be my ex-husband. I used to always see who he could be and not necessarily being fully accepting of who he was. And it's really the same scenario with my mother. And so, I think the resistance, it's all a reflection, is where I need to go, wait a second, what am I resisting in me? The more I can just work on myself, improve me, because that's all I can do, and just allow others to be exactly who they are and where they are. And that their journey, whatever is their journey is their journey. It's not for me to try to get in there and meddle with it.
very well spoken. And I think that comes up for a lot of people that become more spiritual, become on a path, that wake up a bit. They feel like they want to share that. They want to change everyone around them. You know, as you stated, the way to change everyone around you is to change yourself. And if you want more love, then love more deeply the things that you love and the people that you love. So very astute. Thank you for those great answers. How about a few lightning round short answer questions?
Oh, okay then.
All right. Do you think passion and purpose are the same things?
No, they're very interrelated.
Okay.
But not necessarily the same things.
Do you think everybody has a life purpose?
Absolutely. I sure do.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how important is following your joy and igniting your life purpose?
Oh, 10, 11, 12.
Great. Did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose? And do you think somebody needs to quit their job?
I've quit many things. Anything that feels like I'm pushing and it isn't serving me, yes. Someone needs to quit. Well, they would quit if they have something else lined up. I mean, don't be irresponsible, but still. Yeah, I won't go on a tangent there because I know this is a lightning round. But
Very disciplined of you. What brings you great joy?
Gosh. So many things. Music. I've been taking singing and piano lessons for the last year. I just love it. I love it. And my cat loves it too. She comes up and sits right beside me and bugs me, and then I pull up a chair and she sits on the chair and listens to me playing for her.
I'm waiting for the Symphony Towers Mari Smith show.
Yeah.
So please let me know. I'd like
Long
to sit in the
way
front
to
row,
go.
please.
You know the way to Carnegie Hall is practice.
Well, I'll be there for you listening in support. If you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, what would you do differently?
Gosh, I would absolutely support, I would support more business people. I'd support more small business owners or potential entrepreneurs just to go for their dreams.
So just in closing, do you have any personal growth recommendations for our listeners? Something around spirituality or mindfulness that you think would be helpful for someone that wants to know more about what we've been talking about?
Yeah, let's see. So many different ones. There's a great book called How to Meditate by Pema Chodron. And Pema is P-E-M-A. She's mostly known for her work with grieving, for example. She's done an awful lot of books. She's amazing. And she's known in Tibetan Buddhism. And I like her style. I have some of her audios too. So, and just if people can learn how to do that meditating, even if you start with a few minutes a day, literally, and just practicing getting quiet and going within, being mindful.
Yeah, lots of misconceptions about the should-bes of meditation. I think to your point, just setting aside a few minutes and breathing deeply and closing your eyes and accepting what comes can make a big difference.
Yeah, and real quick on that note, you just reminded me of something that Eckhart Tolle espouses, and that is, for the people like you and me too, it's like, if you're finding that you want to try to do meditation a certain way, and I don't have time, it takes 20 minutes, and Eckhart will say, just stop right now and take a mindful breath, just one mindful breath, and you just, right? And I did that kind of fast for the sake of time here, but if you do one really slow mindful breath, and so there you go. That's it. You did it. You were just mindful for 1 minute. What if you could do one more breath? What if you could do another breath? Maybe 5 breaths. There you go. That's your practice.
Right. You're reminding me of something another similar thing from Thich Nhat Hanh, where he says 3 breaths, 1 breath to let go, 1 breath to be here, and 1 breath to ask what next.
Oh, I love that.
So it's very, very sweet and easy to implement, and a good tool to have in your toolbox for on those bad days when you shouldn't be looking at Facebook that we were talking about earlier. Terrific. What's the best way for people to connect with you? This question might take hours to answer, but what is the best way to connect with you?
Really, yeah. I think you can find out more information on my website, marismith.com. But I'm obviously on Facebook a lot. Facebook.com/Mari Smith is my business page. But they can also check out my personal, which is just Facebook.com/Mari S. Yeah, I'm always open. Just pop something on my wall or tweet to me or find my emails on my site. And, and obviously this will go on a page of yours, Angie, where there'll be some show notes or some comments. And very much look forward to connecting with your listeners.
Oh, thank you, Mari. Thank you. And I'll just say to anyone who isn't connected with Mari on Facebook, if you have a question, we're not here to talk about social media or Facebook today, but Mari's great and her team about answering questions, and you might pop in a question about spirituality or personal growth in there. She'll probably answer that for you, too. Is there anything else that you would like to say or anything that you'd like to offer to the group that's out there today?
Gosh, well, actually on my homepage they can find a great report about thought leadership. But it's interesting because thought leadership is, kind of a term that's become more popular over the years. And then I thought, I've been thinking lately, I might go ahead and do another report. It's like heart leadership. Or,
I like
right?
that.
Or just something that's, because thoughts are a great thing, but they're in our heads normally. But they can find all kinds of good stuff. But my main page has a wonderful report they can download.
Okay, and again, that's marysmith.com.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so delightful to take an hour almost of our time out and talk about these very important questions. I'm very grateful for you to be here with us today. You're a delight to know and a great influencer, and I look forward to what's next in your life, Mari Smith.
Thank you so much, and just a pleasure to be here. I look forward to telling my peeps about this interview so they can come and listen.
Well, we thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you like what you've heard today here on the Life Purpose Advisor podcast, please rate us and leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher Radio. We'd love to hear your comments and also who you'd love to hear from, because we'd love to interview them. We thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.